What are the best strategies for an INTJ to stop overeating? But before I can answer, please consider subscribing to the channel so people realize the news is actually fake news, and hit the alert bell so that you can get notified when I go live. That being said, what's up, Ego Hackers? This is the CSJ Podcast, and I'm your host, CS Joseph, here to answer all of your questions on anything Jungian analytical psychology or the four sides of the mind. And the source of today's question is Monica Duffel or Monica Dufel. I don't know how to pronounce your surname, so I apologize in advance. And it's a public wizard question submission. You can find more about wizard at csjoseph.life/wizard. And to read her actual question, what are the best approaches or strategies for an INTJ to stop overeating, with the end goal being weight loss, especially when the nature of the overeating is eating junk food, often in a bingey way, to feel better? This is one of the most dangerous negative feedback loops in existence because let's talk about what's actually happening mechanically from a cognition standpoint. If an INTJ woman is overeating and binging, it's because she's lacking in attention. Because extroverted sensing inferior, also known as performance anxiety, the number one need the number one need that an INTJ woman has is that she is able to captivate and capture attention from other people, and maybe even especially men that she actually wants or would be interested in being attached to or attached with, etc. But other than that, it's really interesting because by binging and giving into SI demon, likely due to a lack of attention, it's just making the situation even worse, which means the INTJ woman would be gaining less attention, which would be making the binging coming from introverted sensing demon via cognitive orbit even worse. Remember, cognitive orbit is how in your ego, whatever function you have in your ego, in whatever slot attitude it is directly linked to your unconscious exactly the same way, but the extroverted versus introverted variant. So for example, extroverted sensing inferior is linked via cognitive orbit to introverted sensing demon. And if the extroverted sensing inferior is not having its needs met, like a lack of attention from others, etc., then the SI demon will literally put the INTJ on the path to destruction. And in this case, it would be binging and eating lots of junk food and overeating and becoming overweight because they're pretty stressed, they're not getting any attention, so they're overcompensating that with self-destructive binging behavior with their introverted sensing demon, and then as a result of that, it just makes the situation even worse. To make it even more worse is that introverted sensing demon, because INTJs just lack self-discipline entirely, and they just don't really know how to stop. It's kind of like how introverted sensing demon makes it so INTJs end up staying up super late. Their circadian rhythm is completely shot, and because of that, their health goes down, and that's why INTJs, out of all of the 16 types, are the most unhealthy of all the types. They are statistically the most unhealthy of the types, with the exception of maybe the INTP being a close second, because INTP's SI child have a natural dopamine addiction, that they are easily addicted to anything that increases their dopamine. And because of that, they can also become extremely unhealthy due to their addictive personality. But with INTJs, it's more of a coping mechanism, constantly trying to cope with this binging and self-destructive behavior. Sometimes INTJs can self-destruct with alcoholism, constant amounts with sex with strangers over and over and over again. Obviously drugs, etc. But they're not doing it for that dopamine fix, which is what an INTP would be basically doing. They're doing it because they're just not getting any attention from the people they want to get attention from. And that could be their dad, that could be their mom, it could be their brother, it could be a family member, it could be that cute guy at work. Who knows? It could be literally anybody, or it could be literally anybody because nobody is giving them attention. And it's especially painful for SE inferior, because SE inferior is like, okay, well, why bother performing for anyone if no one's even going to notice me? And then as a result of that, they enter into this very horrible self-destructive behavior. And it's like, I'm going to light myself on fire hoping somebody will notice. So what they end up doing is like, oh, you're not noticing me because I'm not attractive, or I'm not beautiful, or I'm not performing well enough for you. Well, I'm just going to perform for myself, or I'm going to do all these things, and I'm just going to make myself super mega ugly because you'll acknowledge me at least that while I'm ugly, instead of like when I'm beautiful, even though I'm not beautiful. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and their SI demon ends up consuming the INTJ from the inside out. It's one of the worst things that we could really ever watch happen on a consistent basis. It's also SI demon. This is also why INFJs are likely, statistically, it's between INFJ or ISTP. I'm not really sure yet, but it seems like INFJ out of all the 16 types would have the highest suicide rate, especially INFJ men. But ISTP men are also very, very high up there. It could go back and forth, and we'd have to gather a lot more data and evidence and conduct some proper studies with proper data in order to actually come to those conclusions. That being said, in the very near future, we will actually be able to run those studies very soon. The amount of people that have taken the Discover test at csjoseph.life/discover, we've got like over 30,000 submissions. We need more submissions to make all of the data that we're collecting to be statistically viable. And similar to 23andme.com, we're going to be asking people to participate in studies using their cognition, and they'll fill out a little survey, etc. And then we'll actually start to be able to produce some real data on those studies, and we're going to publish that data on some nice, easily navigated dashboards, and make those dashboards publicly available for anyone within this audience, or anyone else for that matter, to consume and understand, etc. But more on that later. So anyway, how do you solve this problem? How do you stop the flow of self-destruction when it comes to an INTJ who doesn't have any attention whatsoever? And it's actually really hard, because the advice I would typically give actually really benefits an INFJ more so, and which would basically be when they're going to like, for example, I've had INFJs ask me, what does it take to get me to go to the gym? I'm so unmotivated to go to the gym. And I'm like, well, go with a friend. For one, you're affiliative and interdependent. And two, you might be able to be in a position to actually help them with their form, etc., while you're at the gym, while you're lifting with this other person. Also, you don't want to let that person down by not showing up on time, so you'll actually make sure that you're going to bed at a certain time, because you know the following morning you're going to be there for somebody. And then also to get to a point where you know that you're going to perform because you have somebody there with you, and you're going to be performing for somebody, etc. But doing that with an INTJ is extremely hard. More of that, they're just so embarrassed. Like an INTJ woman, for example, would be so embarrassed that they may not even bother going to the gym at all. And I think this is why, like, um, when I go to the gym, I usually go around 9 p.m., and that's because that's when all of the INJs, and especially all the INTJ women, go to the gym. They go to the gym about 9 or 10 p.m. at the earliest, basically, because they're trying to reduce as much of their own personal exposure and be subject to all of the judgments of all of the men and women there at the gym, etc., because it's so late, and because there's not very many people there, not very many humans in the gym. And it's kind of sad that they do that, but I understand it's because they're trying to hide. They're trying to hide their performance anxiety, and that they might not perform well or look their best, because they got to have that look your best facade. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's leading to an INTJ having this binging behavior anyway, because they're very embarrassed and they're not capturing anyone's attention. They're not even being noticed because they're potentially obese. And I know what that's like, not being, but from my point of view, being an ENTP, it's more like I have zero desirability whatsoever because I'm weighing 300 pounds, and that's how I weighed when I was 14. The second I stepped, the day I stepped foot in high school for the very first time, I weighed 287 pounds. Um, so that was pretty rough. But the point is, like, how do you but on the flip side, with INTJ women also have, they usually don't have super high obesity rates. They usually have super high anorexia or bulimia rates, because their version of binging is just not eating food entirely. SI demon gets in there, and then they just don't take care of themselves. They just stop taking care of themselves because they're not getting that attention, and they believe that if they just drop a lot of body fat and get super, super skinny, then someone will notice them. And that's extroverted sensing inferior as well, but without, you know, being influenced heavily by the SI demon, because again, they're not getting that attention. So the only way to do this is to literally create, in some way, shape, or form, a semblance of self-discipline where the INTJ has to go and take care of themselves immediately, because no one is going to notice or give them attention until they do. And then in order to stop the cycle, they have to be walking in the other direction. So some examples of this, um, let's talk about fitness in general. Uh, for example, the example of this is that you need to really get yourself an accountability coach, someone that can hold you accountable, someone that you respect, that you would be letting them down if you didn't perform for that person. To the point where they would really think less of you as an INTJ if you were not actually going to the gym every day, if you were not counting your calories every day, if you were not measuring your food every day in terms of ounces or grams every day with a food scale to make sure that you're not going above your calories and that your macronutrients, meaning protein, fat, and carbohydrates, are being measured properly along with your calories. But when you're doing food, just remember that calories are the most important, because calories versus carbohydrates, fat, and protein macronutrients, they're really off. They're really off. You'd think that there would be 1 to 1, or you'd actually be able, because it's supposed to be 4 calories per gram of carb, or 4 calories per gram of protein, and then 9 calories per gram of fat. But then when you look on the back of labels of food, you'll see that, yeah, if you try to measure your food based on macronutrients alone, you're actually going to go above in calories. So the reality situation is, always calculate calories first as your highest priority, and then focus on protein, fat, and carbohydrates instead. Now you're asking, like, well, hold on, C.S. Joseph, how the hell is this even going to work? How does this even make sense? Because I don't uh, because I don't even know how much protein or fats or carbohydrates I should be eating a day. I don't know what my calories should be. How do I even figure that out? Glad you asked. All you have to do is search on Google for the Legion Athletics Macronutrient Calculator. Okay? And a lot of people disagree with me when I give advice like this, but depending on whether or not you're endomorphic or ectomorphic or mesomorphic, you'll need to look up body morphism. But those three things, those body types, and there's basic body types. You could also see like various body types according to Dr. Eric Berg, according to his YouTube channel, Dr. Berg, which is really, really important. I recommend that you guys do that too, because just because you start going to the gym and you start counting your food and you're counting your calories doesn't mean you're going to be a success, because the junk food that you've eaten could have damaged your DNA so poorly that you don't even know how to eat correctly. Which is why I recommend you read books like Deep Nutrition by Dr. Catherine Shanahan, or The Perfect Health Diet by Dr. Paul Jaminet as well. Or you can hire John Brisson at fixyourgut.com, etc. In fact, he actually just dropped his Optimal Health Blueprint, which is available on the front page of his site. You just hit the button, yes, give it to me, put in your email, and it gets emailed to you. It's pretty awesome. My supplement stack is heavily based around John's Optimal Health Blueprint in terms of managing supplements. If you want to learn more about supplements, check that out. And no, I'm not getting paid to say that. The point is, though, um, when counting calories and then going to the gym and having the proper weightlifting thing, it's not good enough. You have to make sure you're eating the right foods. So if you're mesomorphic, I recommend going. I mean, if you're endomorphic, you definitely want to go keto for sure. Mesomorphic, probably more towards a paleo diet. You can do keto as well if you're really obese. As a mesomorph, start with keto and then maybe end with paleo. It's up to you. I am a mesomorph with my body morphism. I thought I was an endomorph for the longest time. I'm not actually. I'm actually mesomorphic. So based on mesomorphism for me, and given where I came from, having used to weigh 300 pounds, I definitely think it's important um, to be keto all the way through. I am keto all the way through. But although right now my trainer has me on a paleo diet, so go keto for cutting basically, and then for being at maintenance or bulking, you definitely want to do paleo for sure as a mesomorph. If you're ectomorphic, stay vegan. Just be vegan the whole time, and that's how you should eat, vegan. Okay, and of course, if you're ectomorph and using the Legion Athletics macronutrient calculator, just basically grab what you need for protein, have everything else be carbohydrates with as little fat as possible, because ectomorphs, when they eat fat, they get fat, right? Whereas endomorphs, if they eat carbs, they get fat. But if endomorphs eat fat, they lose weight, actually. It's kind of interesting that there's different eating habits and eating rules for our DNA depending on what our body morphism is. Whereas mesomorphic can basically eat just about anything and they'll be fine. They could still potentially lose weight, and that's why they have the most variety, of foods available to them, because their bodies are the most adaptable as a result, right? So based on that, make sure that you as an INTJ are doing all of the proper research to be able to understand this. So the first thing is first, like get a Legion Athletics a macronutrient calculator, and you could also and then here's my macronutrient split right now. Like when I'm cutting, it's 40% protein, but of course it's 40% protein anyway, regardless. All my calories, 40% of my calories forever is always protein, no matter what. And then like when I'm cutting, doing my keto diet, 7% of my calories come from carbohydrates, and then the rest of it is just fat, and that's basically my keto cutting macronutrient split, right? In terms of lifting, you want to read Starting Strength by Mark Ripito, and then understand lifting, etc. We're also going to be having a guest on our show real soon. He's going to be talking about this, Jason Hooper. He's with fixyourgut.com, and he's a fitness trainer, and he'll be talking about his fitness strategies as well, so you'll be able to see that. And then get MyFitnessPal, get the $60 premium thing per year, so it makes it a lot easier for you to use. Plan out your meals using that app. I do it every day, every single day, without fail. And just you decide, and the macronutrient calculator will tell you what you need to do when you're cutting to lose fat, basically, or what to maintain to stay at your normal weight, or what you need to do to actually gain muscle, etc., also known as bulking, etc. And then you just kind of go back and forth. Getting the proper lifting routines, I'll be honest, I'm really bad at that. But you could probably, to get good routines, I think the best routine out there is probably what's available at Kinobody, Kinobody, Kinobody. And then also Michael Matthews has got some pretty decent routines. And then there's also the starter routine that you can do, which is strong lifts. 5x5 routine is also a great starting point. Just download the app and you're ready to go. But it's really for beginners, or maybe even mid-tier as well. But I think it's more of a beginner approach. But that'll just get you started and get you going. There's a lot of other people who have struggled with weight within this community. Shout out to Ellie Serratos, an ENTP, who has made huge strides in losing fat as well. And you could also consult with her she's in the Facebook public group. Just like literally create a post and tag her and be like, hey, do you have any advice? And I'm sure she'd help you, because like hashtag #FUChild, you know what I'm saying? So that is also another thing as well. But like I said, regardless of you counting calories, if you're not eating quality foods, you're doing it wrong. So you need to learn and research how to do that. So you do that through Dr. Eric Berg and also Thomas DeLauer. Those are great resources in terms of figuring out what the proper way to eat. And then anything that has to do with Dr. Catherine Shanahan, which is Deep Nutrition, or The Perfect Health Diet, or Dr. Paul Jaminet, literally follow their food rules basically, so that you know exactly the kinds of foods that you could eat to get the most benefit. And I know how INTJs are all about optimizing and min-maxing every little possible thing to get the absolute benefit from their minimum effective dose. I highly, highly recommend that as well. So anyway, these are just some strategies that I could use, but they're not exactly the best approaches. Now, if you got like a decent amount of money that you can spend every month, you could just hire my personal trainer. You could just straight up hire and just tell her that I sent you, etc. But my trainer is Jess Gawne, Jess space Gawne. Fantastic trainer. She did a photo shoot recently for Maxim. And I've been very fortunate to work with her, and I'm very happy to be her client, and I've been her client for some time. And in my life right now, statistically, I should be gaining weight. I should be gaining a lot of fat, but I'm not. I'm actually going the other direction. And since being on her program, I've lost over 30 pounds of fat actually, and getting stronger and stronger as I go. So worst case, if you just absolutely don't know and you got the money, hire Jess. If not, use the Legion Athletics macronutrient calculator, do some research on what the best routines are, study Mark Ripito, Paul Jaminet, Dr. Catherine Shanahan, Tom DeLauer, and Dr. Eric Berg, like on YouTube, etc. And you will, over time, be able to create a system, create a plan that you can execute, that it will guarantee you an outcome, that your anti-hero will get what you want. And then as a result of that, because you know that you're able to perform and you're working, and you will see results. You'll be able to track it by a chart and everything. You will get those results. And once you have those results, well, guess what? You'll start getting attention again, and then you won't ever have to binge or be subject to the whims of your SI demon for the rest of your life. If you want deep dive premium lectures with over 2 years of hidden content on this science that focus on personal growth, sexuality, parenting, and development, please visit csjoseph.life/members and get a journeyman membership. I mean, I got my secret podcast in there. It's Cutting Edge with CSJ. I do it like a 1 to 2 hour episode every month, and we have like 2 years of content in there just on that podcast alone, plus all of season 18 and season 23. The next 2 episodes for season 23 is how to parent ISTPs and how to parent INTJs. It's pretty awesome. The INTJ one's already filmed, and I believe the ISTP one is being filmed tomorrow. I hope you guys check that out as soon as possible. Anyway, folks, all that being said, I'll see you guys tonight.